CRM was supposed to improve customer relationships. Instead, it's shorthand for can't resolve much. Which means you may have sunk a fortune into software that just bounces customer issues around but never actually solves them. On the ServiceNow AI platform, CRM stands for something better. With AI built into one platform, customers aren't mired in endless loops of automated indifference. They get what they need, when they need it. Bad CRM was then. This is ServiceNow.
Welcome to Horror Bytes on Safe Room, the show where we discuss the smaller scares and teenier terrors available to play on your gaming devices. Every week we pick one or two bite-sized horror games and have a sweet chat about them. I'm Neil Bolt, and Doomscrolling with me this week is, as ever, my co-host Jay Krieger. How you doing, Jay?
I'm doing well. Once again, I've gone over my data limit for the month, but it was all in the name of the sweet, sweet dopamine rush on my phone.
Yes, absolutely. And but before we get into that, of course, I will, as always, say that if you do like the sound of what we played, the show notes do include links to any games we've included. And as ever, if you enjoy them, consider supporting the developers by donating, wishlisting their future projects, or just sharing the word, because it all helps to build the next generation of horror game developers. So for this week's pick, with social media being a near unending parade of awfulness, played a game that's social media that will drive you insane. So I'm going to pronounce this right, shogo.th, like the Lovecraft thing, by Ape Hardware, promises everything that's wrong with social media and the alt-right, and throws in some eldritch terror for good measure. So yeah, it is basically a playable social media platform that has a very familiar feel. If you've scrolled any of them in any point in the last decade, I'd say. But there's these little fruity twists of cosmic horror in there as well. And yeah, so it's tying that sort of cosmic horror into the idea that, you scrolling through, you may have seen certain posts at certain times, but you can't really remember what you've seen, but you want to see them. Again, is the idea. And yeah, I think one of the descriptors as you start the game up is basically saying, this used to be a place of joy, but now it's been twisted, which is very, of course, relatable. Horrible posts running rampant. The idea is you're supposed to scroll away from them and leave them unseen. And they have an effect, basically, on the more you scroll, your sanity is affected by it. So you need to do this, basically, in this game, which is to like a post, to filter the post with similar tags, and basically check off this checklist of things you need to find. But yes, the algorithm can mess with you, let's put it that way. And you should then sort of save the post you have found that are part of this puzzle you're trying to solve. But if you find the wrong ones, your laptop battery basically starts depleting. So you're fighting, your sanity and your laptop battery, which again, very relatable, sort of double header of things that can happen to us all. So yeah, I mean, making a game that is just basically a form of social media. We've had ones that sort of capture the earlier sort of years of like forum-y type stuff and that, and chat rooms. But yeah, this is, a rough and ready sort of thing. They made it very quickly for a game jam. Lots of stock images used to sort of put the imagery up for there. Like they've messed with it in little fun ways to sort of do that. And the occasional bit of like hand-drawn stuff as well. It's like going onto any sort of social media platform first time, sort of navigating it is quite overwhelming at first, which is, always the case. You're not quite, even with the rules sort of being posted up front, you're still not kind of sure exactly what you're supposed to be doing, what you're supposed to be finding. Like I said, the best way to do it is to look at like the little list of things you've got to find effectively, like on the side of your page. But yeah, the problem is, of course, you have to scroll to find the right things and ignore the things you shouldn't be looking at. And yeah, it's exactly as sort of confusing and bewildering as you expect with that. Yeah, and this isn't a bad thing about it, I suppose, but it does feel a little too much like social media at times in those regards, which is to be applauded, I think, in terms of like the design and the posts are, whilst they're cosmic horror infused versions of the kind of shit you see on social media, like whether it be like certain opinions and like people basically just giving themselves to like being fucked over by cosmic horrors. But yeah, that's pretty much the extent of it. I'm not entirely sure if the puzzling stuff works right for me because, as I said, it's just like sort of getting an idea of what you need to do with it. But I think it's just because it's a good swing for what they were doing with a short amount of time. The idea of just using this sort of social media platform in this way and having those two sort of outcomes, both of which failure rewards you with a different sort of outcome. Which we won't spoil here. If you go test it out. But yeah, it's an interesting idea. Like I said, I'm not entirely sure it worked for me in terms of like full execution, but I really do like the concept of it. How did you sort of feel about this one?
Yeah, I largely agree. I think I wouldn't necessarily say I consider it to be fun or enjoyable as a game per se. Like the managing the sanity and battery drain aspect of it that's how you would make a game such as this, right? Where it's like, yeah, you basically like have a boot on your neck that's saying, okay, you're going to navigate these various posts. You need to find these certain things, but like, that's not the aspect that I think makes this notable. I think for the reasons that you mentioned is that it's more about this kind of like reflective, interactive piece of basically like social and technology commentary, basically, which I think is where the game really does shine. I think that, from the very tagline itself, it's like in Eldritch Twitter, time wastes you. Like that whole aspect of it, I think is really quite well done. And like as an interactive piece of media, that's where this shines because of the fact that it's able to take this horror context and then basically like filter our own reality through that in a way that is quite effective, right? Because, you're monitoring various things. Like there's this rebellion basically between, political opposition to rebellion in Deep Sea, which again is like the Mer people basically are like revolting or they're having this kind of coup almost. But then at the same time, you see people on your feed and it's like, what are they doing? Oh, they're fucking tweeting about cats and posting weird videos of cats, which is like, yeah, that's pretty much the summary of what our experience on social media is like. It's like some people are basically live tweeting coups and then the other half is tweeting pictures of animals. But I think that also like its ability to take things like concepts like grifters, right? And I actually took a lot of screenshots for our chat about this game this week.
Yeah.
And that's basically where my commentary for it's going to come from is just like sharing these ridiculous things. Like one of them is, it says, and this is like an all in caps too. The forced awakening of the elder ones is the ideal scenario to prove you're a real man. And you can imagine how the rest of that post plays out. And it's like this very clearly like this alpha male grifter type of a thing that is trying to basically like express to people that, this is what you see on social media. But again, having this like horror lens for everything makes it like a little more palatable, which I think, if anything, just kind of like emphasizes and reinforces the lunacy of our current state of things. But, we're so inundated with the norms of social media these days that we should think it's a lot more ridiculous than it actually is.
As I say, for something that is supposed to be so simple, in its execution, social media is almost perfect for that sort of cosmic horror because, it just feels like it's unfathomable in a way that it shouldn't be, but it's like you just can't quite contemplate everything that you're seeing like in one go. And the idea that you do sort of scroll down and kind of lose your sanity does make sense as well. That is very much how social media feels a lot of the time, now especially. But it is a great sort of use of that, and like you said, it makes this like a really good sort of project, an idea to sort of put this together as a sort of social media pastiche, if you will. And yeah, on that level, it's a success. Absolutely. But sorry, do you have anything else to say on that one?
Oh, just that, a game's like this ability that to basically like not only have those alpha male sort of like posts, but also like including things like crypto coin, right, which is naturally called like Cthulhu coin, or you have basically like talking about chat GPT and AI artwork and these things. But then at the same time, you have like these really funny moments of people that are not like making a commentary, but rather just like tweeting their or whatever, posting their experience, like from the early days of social media, where it was like back in the day, it was like, I'm going to have Chipotle for lunch today, which we've all, hopefully graduated from and understanding the use for that. But then here you have one where a guy is like, basically sharing his account of quitting Cthulhuism because his brother got eaten from his insides by some tentacle thing. Like, I think it's a really great blending of, again, this kind of social and technology commentary, but at the same time, there's a good amount of humor here that doesn't seem like it takes itself all too seriously. And it's notable to say, on top of that, like all of the images that are in this game were not, did not use AI, and this person like used all open source and did the editing themselves. And because of the limitations of that, like it's clear that the person doing this is not an artist based upon, the Photoshops that are here, but it is actually complementary in terms of this experience because of the fact that it's like what you're looking at is as ridiculous as what you're reading. And yet something of merit is actually being commentated on in a way that can make you be self-reflective in that way. So again, as like an experience, I really like this. And I think that when it gamifies it is when it interferes with my exploring something that I think is incredibly interesting and I think is really well done. But it is like the gamification of it that kind of like gives me a little pause. But at the end of the day, it makes sense. It's not like they shoehorned in that sanity battery meter. Like that makes perfect sense. It's just, I think it gets in the way of really what is overall a pretty strong experience as this like interactive piece of social commentary.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about it. It's like I can understand why people would want to sort of gamify these little projects because you're there, you want to sort of make it be something like that. But they do tend to be the odd one we pick up where you go, probably didn't have to be a game. It's like it could have just been like a fun little experiment you made. But and I think that's definitely where the focus was. And again, with game jams, you have to make it priority, what you want to sell with your game. The idea that like what message, what's the main theme of what I want to do. And that was always going to sort of take priority with something like this, which is good. And that's fine. So I don't want to judge it too much. I know we are a games podcast, but it's still interesting to have something like this where you can say, game, not so much, but as a concept and an experience, funny and quite smart for what it's doing. So interesting one, this one. But that is all we have for this week. So thank you again, Jay. And if you, the listener, have a short horror game, a demo, a game jam entry, or a proof of concept that you think we should be highlighting, you can email us at saferoom@gmail.com. And Jay has another place for you to go.
You guys can follow us on Blue Sky at Safe Room Pod for show updates.
Many thanks. And we will be back with more small-scale horror next week.